I'm going to need a lot of room. Good evening. My name is Azucar. It means sugar in Spanish, for those of you who would like to know. I'm honored to be here, and thank you so much, Winston, for this invitation. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you. You're a wonderful crowd. The course of my life has come down to two things that made a huge difference. The first thing is my willingness to be fierce. And by fierce, I mean I was not willing as a young boy to let my life situation dictate my life. I was not willing to be crushed by anybody or any society. And if I was knocked down, I was going to get up every single time. I was willing to face my fears. I was willing to take risks. I was willing to fail because I knew I could get back up. What fierceness is not, it's not ferociousness. It's not hatred. It's not anger. It's not unkindness or loud. Fierceness is deep and clear and committed. And then I found out the second piece that would change my life. I would take fierceness and I would wash it. I would bathe it and I would blanket it in compassion. And this has led me to the life of my dreams. I live a life in gratitude. I live a life with love, intimacy, and connection. And it has come in all parts of my life, starting with the relationship with myself. The relationship with my beloved and life partner, Carmen. The relationship with this amazing team at our firm, Genesis CPAs, an amazing group of people. Relationship with clients, friends, colleagues, and family of my choosing. Love, intimacy, and connection, however, was absent at my birth. I was born way back here, 1955, in Cape Town, South Africa. The time of the dinosaurs, the land of the dinosaurs. Except dinosaurs back here weren't big, ugly old lizards with big teeth or big tails or little arms. No, dinosaurs back here in Cape Town, South Africa were the leaders of apartheid. Now, some of you may not know, but apartheid broke people down between skin color. Whites over here with all the power and all the wealth based on skin color. That was it. Blacks over here, abject poverty, totally controlled. Then they had this group that was neither black nor white. Me. We were called coloreds, mixed race people, and we were slightly better off than the blacks. So I was born inferior. I was born to be crushed. I mattered nothing. And I would go through life as a kid being crushed constantly. But I would get back up. That was in me. I was fierce already as a little kid. I was not going to die. I was going to stay alive, and I was going to thrive. Unfortunately for me, inside the home, I was born to parents that had an unwanted pregnancy, a teenage parent. So I would find abuse, emotional and physical. I would be knocked down only to stand up and knocked down again. Pissed my father off to no end that I would keep getting up. I had to in order to survive. But there was one place that I enjoyed in Cape Town, and that was the beach. I loved the beach. You know, I remember when I was 8 years old, the family car pulled up and I ran down all by myself to the waterfront, and I would walk along the beach. I just loved being alone on the beach, and I would chase the sandpipers as they go back and forth against the waves. I just had so much fun. I felt the heat on my face and the smell of the seawater. It was also awesome. I just was in my place. And then I would love to water surf, jumping waves. Now, because I was brown, I had to be on a brown beach. The problem with brown beaches was there were stones in the water. You would cut your feet when you land. You were hoping not to get hurt too much. This particular day, I was right beside the white people's beach, and there was this big rope in the water, a racial barrier stopping me from the most beautiful beaches on the planet, simply because I was brown skinned. And I knew if I played over there, it would be amazing. So I looked around. No one was there. So I stepped over this racial barrier. Oh my God, that felt good. Ooh, the sand was so nice coming through my toes. And so I started to play. Body surfed. And before I knew it, at the corner of my eye, 4 white boys, slightly bigger than me, came rushing at me. And before I knew it, they were on top of me. Now, I knew I was in trouble. I was going to get hurt. But what I didn't expect was what happened. They pushed me under the water and kept me there. I thought they'd let me go, but they weren't letting me go. And as the more I struggled, the worse it got. Bubbles started coming out of my mouth. And I started panicking. And then I got to the point of just relaxing. I realized my life was over. And as I relaxed, they suddenly let go. And I sprang out. My older cousin had come running down the beach. He was much bigger than them, and he knocked them off me to save my life. And then my cousin ran home because he knew he was now in big trouble. And I crawled out of that water on my hands and knees. And when I was out, I laid on my belly on the beach, exhausted, came within an inch of my life, simply because I was brown-skinned playing on a white beach. That was enough to kill me. How was an 8-year-old boy in that condition to get back up? How would such a child get up in such a society? The only way was help, and help would come in an unexpected way. My mother was the only practicing Catholic in our family. And she had heard that in a white area, not far from our colored area, they had built a brand new Catholic church. And in it, they put in this new young from Germany. And this priest was filled with fierceness and compassion, because once he took over, he decided to break apartheid in his own way. And that way would be to integrate his church with people of all skin color. He succeeded on one condition, that the colored people and the black people sat at the back of the church. So my mother went to this church, and she'd come home talking about this young priest, how He talked about equality and love and potential, and that I should go and see him. And finally I did. And he recognized something in me pretty quickly. He knew that I had the fierceness in me that he had in himself. And he asked me to do something to help him break apartheid. And that was to become the first non-white altar boy. And there was something in me that was willing to poke the chest of the beast, my tormentors. And you know what? I said, yes, without a moment's hesitation, I would do this. And so began my journey practicing to become an altar boy. I did all the things that are necessary to become a good altar boy. And in those days, I had to learn Latin, and I was terrible, so I became an expert mumbler of Latin. Got away with it. I learned how to put the flowers and the Bibles and the candles in the church. I did everything. I practiced and practiced and practiced. Then the fateful day came. I remember standing in the rectory. It was high mass. The church was full. The priest was in front of me. I was to his right. One other white altar boy was beside me. And for the first time, I became very scared. I knew what I had done. As soon as I stepped onto that altar, excuse the pun, all hell would break loose. And I was really scared. And all the priest did was he looked down at me, and I looked up at him. We both nodded, and we started to walk. And as I walked onto the altar, the parishioners were on the right, real close to me. And then I heard all the rumblings. And then I heard, no, no. And some of them stood up. No, no. Some of them started to leave. No. I poked the beast. I turned my back to them because I had to do my service. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, but I was fierce, 8-year-old boy having to handle this. And I continued on with the service. Then came communion. And in those days, the altar boy would hold a little silver tray underneath the chin as they gave the wafer. And this particular church had a railing where people would kneel, whites first, and the priest would go in and put the communion on their tongue. So I got up, the first one, put the tray underneath the person's chin, and the priest went to place it on his tongue. Zip, refused to open his mouth in protest. Second one, zip. Third one, zip. Fourth one, zip. The fifth one, an elderly lady with a tiny hat with pins in it. I'll always remember it. Beautiful silver gray hair coming down her face. She had these granny glasses on that seemed to magnify her eyes. Warm, beautiful, loving eyes. She looked up at me. My eyes connected with hers. And she had the smallest smile I can remember to this day. And when the priest went to put the communion on her tongue, she opened it wide and took it in. And before leaving, looked up at me one more time and nodded. For the first time in my life, I felt a connection to another human being. That somebody cared enough for me to serve them. That my skin color did not matter. She was fierce with compassion, just like the priest. I started to learn what really mattered very early on in life. And within a few months, there was a number of non-white altar boys in that church. Things started to happen. The end of apartheid was coming. It would take another 30 years, but it would come. through Nelson Mandela. However, I was to move to this beautiful country at the age of 10, 2 years after this incident. And when I arrived here, the land of opportunity, the land of freedom, the land of equality, with my fierceness, it took me far and quickly. I excelled because of what I had learned through adversity. My education, I was really successful. In sports, I decided to become a soccer goalkeeper at the age of 12. And because of this fierceness, I was one of the best in the country 3 years later. I took the same approach to my professional life as the CPA. Same with my business. I was fierce, but compassion was hard for me. Not having the love and intimacy and connection as a kid, not being held with compassion was hard. So about 13 years ago, I decided to go inwards. Self-knowledge, a journey inwards. And I was fierce about that. I was passionate about that. And so I went in. And I started to feel, for the first time in my life, that lady that came back to me and her connection with me. It started to happen. I started to combine fierceness with compassion. And it's brought me to where I am today, living the life of my dreams, of love, intimacy, and connection. And all my successes in life doesn't count compared to these feelings of living a life of gratitude. And where do I go from here? I go deeper with fierceness and compassion, because I know in my bones that if I go deep enough, I will touch the face of existence. Thank you.
Thank you.